Welcome to EFT Nation, your home for all things tapping. For show notes and resources, please visit EFTtappingtraining.com. We are your tapping hosts. I'm Alina Frank.
And I'm Craig Wiener. The information provided in this podcast is not a substitute for counseling or medical advice. The information presented here is meant to inspire and educate listeners, but are not guarantees of any kind.
Today we are discussing physical symptoms from the lens of EFT, and maybe specifically talking about metaphor, how to use, the body as a metaphor for those places in your life where you haven't healed. Because in EFT, we really don't treat or cure or heal anything. We look at what are the emotional contributing factors of this. And we have another podcast, so go refer back to that one, Working with Physical Issues. But I think with this one, we're going to get deeper because there are many, many layers of this work.
Okay. So what I like about what you said is if we put on the lens that our body is a metaphor for even something deeper than that, more subtle than that, on an energetic or whatever level you want to look at it, then we start to look at that your body, Carolyn May said it well. She goes, your biography becomes your biology, right? And we have to be careful with this because of blame and a variety of ways that people consider things psychosomatic and your fault. But she says this implies that we participate to some degree in the creation of illness, to some degree. But we have to be careful to not abuse that truth by blaming ourselves or blaming our clients or patients for becoming ill. But illnesses develop as a consequence of our behaviors, our patterns, our attitudes that we don't even realize might be biologically toxic until they've already become so, and they become a symptom, a disease, a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And like you said, when you're working on yourself or you're working with a client, we begin, there are different levels of working. We're going to go deeper. We've already talked about working, for example, just with how you feel about your condition, that it's driving you crazy, it's making you angry, it's making you miss not being able to do whatever, right? And there's like the first level of working with that. And you can work with just the physical symptoms, and you can also just work with the emotions about it.
What do you mean just working with the physical?
In other words, just tapping on, even though I have this burning elbow pain on the side of my right elbow.
What we call chasing the pain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we can use, for example, basic EFT, even though I'm feeling really pissed off because I can't go play tennis today, and it's a beautiful day, and I can work on my emotions about it, kind of a deeper layer.
Yeah.
And then we always, of course, are talking about specifics and specific examples and events. And there's a whole host of things of when did that first happen? Right? What was going on when that happened? What about what might be adverse, as in how, when I went to the doctor or the physical therapist or the chiropractor, whatever, what they said about it, or the diagnosis was given about it, or the film that they showed, or the diagnosis that they read to me, or the prognosis that they said. All of those are specific events that are related, and when worked on, can start to release the stress and fears and concerns about that can offer a better chance of healing.
Right.
And go ahead.
I want to say that this is, we think of it as like mind-body medicine or mind-body healing or all that, and think it's like this new term. But really, for the ages, shamans and healers really understood the interconnectedness of all aspects of a person. There was no distinction between the inner and the outer, the mind and the body. And so now it's coming, like we lost that understanding, and now I feel like we're on the precipice of really making that connection again and reclaiming that that knowledge and awareness, that what we refer to now as mind body. When the emotional energy or the situation that we find ourselves in is beyond our immediate control, the subconscious will take it and express it for us. And where does it express it? Through the body. So it might be out of mind, but not necessarily out of body. So I think that I like that phrase because so many people in Western culture, in modern day society, are looking for, give me an aspirin, give me a bandage, give me some kind of pill. And we don't go we don't necessarily right off the bat start the exploration of, okay, what else is here? Like, I can take that, I can put on the bandage, I can take the aspirin, but what else is there? What other gifts are there in this presenting itself to me now?
Okay, but that's a huge shift
Yeah.
for somebody to look at. I mean, having been a chiropractor dealing with people in pain for 30 years, the immediate tendency
Yeah.
is to be annoyed and bothered by the suffering that we're having to suffer, right? Which is quite natural. I mean, who wants to be in pain?
Well, and let's go I'll voice the spiritual perspective.
Yeah, but we're
How-
not, we're not there.
how-
Well, we're not there yet. I want to just give room that people are suffering
get
and they
it.
want this to go away like now.
Yes. And so that immediacy of pain,
Yep.
that immediacy of, oh my gosh, I am flat on my back.
Mm-hmm.
What better way to get your attention?
I agree with that. You know, the kind of God's 2x4,
Right.
right? Get to the body, put them in pain, not be able to let them stand up, move, play golf, hold their
Yeah.
kid, whatever,
Yes.
captures the attention.
Yes. Yes.
But to be able to shift as quickly as possible to go, okay,
yeah.
all right, I'm going to get curious about this. What if this was happening for a reason?
Right.
What if there was some meaning and bigger purpose for this happening? Why this? Why now?
And I will say that what better way to get you to that place of being curious instead of angry, sad, flat on your back in pain, not wanting to go there than EFT.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful way of accessing the higher level, deeper information that's there.
It is. So, you know what? If you don't go immediately there, it's okay. It's human. But the sooner that we're able to shift out of the suffering and the emotional angst about what we have and the condition we have, and the sooner that we can put a lens of curiosity and start asking questions, the better, and the more likely for underlying healing. Because if you just put on the lens of, okay, this is here for a reason, so I want to go over some questions that might be useful for beginning that conversation that you can be using to tapping. And, you know, one of the ones is, okay, from an emotional standpoint, if that body area, I don't care whether you have a backache, whether you've got, you know, congestion or allergies or, you know, psoriasis or a knee injury, or it doesn't matter what it is in the body. But if that body part had some sort of emotion right now, what would it be expressing? And of course, you're just guessing because, you know, you don't know. So you're just asking if it were to be, you know, if I were to ask it and able to have a conversation with it, or however process I use to tune in, whether it's guessing or an introspective, mindful exercise, find out, is that body part angry? And if it is, asking it why and listening for whatever shows up there. Like, what are you so pissed at?
And many times these are global themes.
Sure.
And you have to get to specific events.
Yeah. So
Or
what are you so
helping-
pissed at? Because you're not doing anything about this situation. And so I may as well just, you know, teach you a lesson or whatever it is. It's like, what lesson?
Right.
What things?
Right.
What's going on? So asking and inquiring about the emotions of a body part that's suffering is useful. Another question might be, okay, taking it a little bit deeper. So what is it that body part is expressing for you as an entire being, sentient being, that maybe you're not? That maybe you're not verbalizing, saying, speaking out loud, and your body's like not waiting for you to do it anymore because it's been there for a while, and you're in whatever, consciously or unconsciously, intimidated, scared, concerned, worried about what'll happen if you do, and your body does it.
Yeah, there's a great quote from Gabor Mate on this. When we have been prevented from learning how to say no, our bodies may end up saying no for us.
Like how? Like how might your body be saying no when you
Okay,
can't?
let's say I have a very toxic family,
Okay.
and they've invited me to a wedding.
Okay.
And the week before the wedding, I've been conditioned to people please because of an unsafe, unhealthy environment in childhood where I was told to stuff my feelings. I was conditioned to be nice, be kind, try to manage my mother's depression or my father's anger. I had to people please.
Okay.
And so I was prevented from learning to say no.
Okay.
And so the week before the wedding, I come down with a bout of my chronic
Shingles,
illness,
whatever. Whatever it was.
Yeah, and so I have to say no.
Okay.
Because I can't. I physically can't get that.
Right. Or I'm infectious or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's a good example of your body saying no when you weren't able to verbalize that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a great question. What is it? If I knew what it was, or if my body was able to tell me or able to hear it, right now, what is my body trying to express that I'm not doing or I'm not doing enough of?
Sure.
Taking it even a little bit deeper, if your body, because in all the wisdom of the body, so many beautiful books, the wisdom of the body, when we look at it that way, that our body is always telling us the truth, whether we want to hear it or not, that if our body was trying to teach us something, show us something, point out or direct us to something, what might that be? How often has it been that you're like ready, you're working so hard and all of a sudden and you have so much to do and your back goes out.
Right.
Right? And you don't have time for that. Right? There's tremendous pressure at work. There's so many things to have to handle. You don't have the time or the space to be dealing with this. And maybe in an inquiry where you can start to be open, like, okay, what if my body in the bigger picture is trying to heal something bigger than the current moment? And maybe it's saying, you need to take a break. If you don't take a break now, you're heading for a stroke. You're heading for a heart attack. You're heading to lose your marriage. You're heading, whatever it is, towards something much worse than this back pain. And it is saying, this is how I'm trying to point it out to you. But if we only stay in the I'm angry at it, or I'm annoyed by it, or I'm frustrated by it, or I just over-medicate it, or whatever, and I don't listen for the underlying teaching that it's trying to point out for me, then it's likely to just happen again, right? Because if the lesson wasn't learned,
right? Yep.
The
then
next,
there was another one.
yeah, and so the last point that I wanted to cover in today, I mean, we're going to be having a whole webinar on taking this much deeper, but I want to say
Number 4.
Yeah. So the fourth point I wanted to cover today was starting to have an inquiry and listen for the cues and listen to because the body mind is so connected, listen more carefully for the verbiage and the words you're using to describe what's happening in your body. Do you catch yourself if somebody asks you, or you're to ask yourself, what does that feel like? And it's like, oh my God, I just feel like it's like a stabbing pain in my back.
Right.
And rather than just leaving it that, it's like, okay, so that's interesting. And I'm wondering if there was somebody or something or some occurrence that was like somebody stabbing me in the back.
Yeah.
Right? In other words, when I'm looking at gut-related problems, maybe a question might be, I mean, what is the purpose of the gut? But to basically ingest nutrients that you need to be able to digest it and then get rid of what's not needed. What is it that I'm either not able about the situation to be taking in? Or what is it that I'm just not going to be able to digest or accept about this?
Right.
Or what is it I can't let go of
Right.
about this and I have to hold on to?
Right.
Right? And we often will hear things about, like, I just can't, oh my God, I can't swallow that they're really going to do that.
Right.
And we can hear that in language sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what we'll be going into in our course are the themes for different parts of the body, different organs, different systems of the body, and the themes that are connected with that. But we, as practitioners and trainers, what we want you to know is that it's really important for you to listen deeply to, if you're working on yourself, your own words, not ours. And if you're working with a client, you're really listening for your client's words, not yours. And so, yes, I know what themes are around lungs, but I remember a client saying to me, actually it was a demo in a public presentation in Canada that we did, where there was something going on in her lungs, and I asked her, like, so what is it that represents when you think about that? And she said, inspiration. And my lack of inspiration. And so we went into the area of her life where she was feeling no inspiration, and suddenly she got immediate relief within, a couple of rounds of tapping on specific events.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is so important about it's their connections that they're making.
Absolutely.
It's their meaning making.
Right.
I ask myself, and I ask clients that all the time. So they shared with me something maybe about physical. It's like, what does that mean to you?
Right.
Like, I can't wrap my head around that. Or these headaches are just, I feel like I'm spinning out of control. And, whatever phrases that they're using, it's like, how or what in your life feels that way? Other than that physical body symptom feeling that way, what other situations or challenges or relationships or occurrences are happening in your life that resemble that feel connected to that?
Right.
And so I'm just rephrasing what they said in an inquiry that they may not have taken to themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Or asking myself that. Right?
So, I mean, these are, I think now we're in a place where medicine it might be starting to look at these things. There is such a lack. I mean, as EFT practitioners and trainers, we've seen, hundreds and hundreds of cases where working on the emotional contributing factors eased or really did effectively help resolve what was going on for someone. But we have a lack of real clinical case studies. And so I encourage...
That demonstrate the reverse. There
Yes,
are thousands of studies, including the adverse childhood experience studies, that show
the
direct
correlation.
connection and correlation
Yes.
between early
Yes.
adversity and trauma and
Right.
liver disease and heart disease and earlier death and so many different conditions.
But in clinical journeys, there's three stories that I want to share. They're so rare. I just think it puts a name, puts us in context of like this theory that we're talking about. So there was a man with retinitis, bleeding,
Hemorrhagic retinitis.
Hemorrhagic retinitis. And so bleeding from the retina. And when exploring what happened and what led to this, they found that in childhood he had knocked over a figure of Christ off of a crucifix with a stone. And years later he began to have the bleeding in his eyes when a blind man in town known as the blasphemer of God came into his shop. And so that's when it triggered that old memory subconsciously. Like he wasn't aware of all of this. And so as he worked with someone in therapy and understood the connection, it all stopped. And there was a woman who developed severe rheumatoid arthritis. And the illness really started when she was in the middle of a difficult marriage, living in a town that she really hated. And in therapy, she told her therapist that she felt like she was in a bind and she couldn't get moving. And she felt tethered, she felt enslaved, she felt crippled by living in this town. And therapy led to a complete remission.
And moving, and then the steps.
Yeah, exactly.
Of starting
Yeah.
to realize, make the connection. I mean, John Sarno's book is full of these. Is oftentimes just people understanding the emotional and, the connections between their physical condition and kind of the emotional root cause. Sometimes is enough, but other times other steps are then needed to actually get out of the relationship or out of the town, et cetera.
Yeah. Another one in the clinical journals is an elderly woman who developed inflammatory thickening of the skin. It's a form of connective tissue disease. And it started when she fell over and injured herself in a shopping mall. And then she began to describe it as it caused her to go into her shell. And after the injury, she really just kind of retreated from life and, went behind her four walls there. And when a friend started insisting on her coming out of her shell, she had a spontaneous remission.
Okay.
So And, we don't have all the time here in this podcast to give you insight into what's regeneration phase, what's stress phase, when do the symptoms come? Are the symptoms coming when an organ is actually removed from the stressors in someone's life? Or is it happening when they are, on the other side of it, or when they're in the thick of it? There are all these themes that we'd love to share with you, and we have a class on this coming up in later this year. If you want to check out, just go to efttappingtraining.com/events. And it is looking for uncovering, we called it uncovering or discovering the underlying emotional core issues in
To physical conditions. Yeah.
To physical conditions. Yeah.
Okay. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it stirred some interest and some questions that are maybe new for you. And we hope to see you in the course.
Thanks for joining us today at EFT Nation. And remember that you can find show notes and previous episodes at EFTtappingtraining.com.